Have you ever picked a color before? Chances are it was this morning when you were putting on your outfit. Or maybe you went down to the paint store to get a book of swatches because you needed to paint a room in your house. So you bring them home and you check to see your favorite shade of green on the wall. Or maybe you're a digital artist and you like to use Photoshop and you've seen their color picker, where you've got a big square and several sliders or numbers and all kinds of different things you need to really dial in and get the perfect tone for the job. Well, where does all this come from? How do we have so many convenient ways to organize colors? Well, that's what I want to talk to you guys a little bit about today. I want to explore the history of that and the psychology of it and psychologists' contributions to color theory, as well as we'll talk a little bit about how it's used today and why it matters to us. Now, I know I've talked about this before, but I'm an electrical engineering student, and of course, I'm doing that because I'm fascinated with all things science and physics, and that's certainly one way to look at color and light and everything, but it's not the only lens to view color through. There's the artistic perspective, and that's something that I've picked up from working with my dad as a painter and working with the artist, and even some things I've learned from knowledgeable people at the paint store. Well, what I'm really interested in is where these two things come together. Where does art meet science? And it turns out I'm not the only one because there's been numerous contributions to the field of color theory from a whole bunch of different people over human history, people with all different backgrounds, expertise in different fields of study. Well, it all started with the ancient Greeks, as things usually do. Aristotle set out to organize all the colors in a systematic way, and being philosophical as the Greeks were, he kind of tried to figure out what's the core essence of what a color is, and he settled on colors being the interplay between lightness and darkness, and that was the basis of his color scheme. He pretty much just lined everything up in a nice neat row from light to dark. Now, we all know how celebrated the Greeks were as artists, and the Renaissance artists that came after them studied them, learned from them. Surely this way of organizing colors was good enough, right? I mean, they're all there. Well, in 1660, Isaac Newton came along, and few things were good enough for Isaac Newton. Now, I'm sure you know about his contributions to physics and math, the invention of calculus. All those things are great, but he also did some things you may not know about, like inventing the color wheel. He was the first person to figure out that when you shine white light into a prism, it comes out the other side as all colors of the rainbow. And you can turn another prism around and put it on the other side and combine all those colors back into white light. Well, since he figured out this property of colors mixing into white, it seemed to him we needed a better way to organize colors that incorporated that. When you can't just shove white in the middle of the rainbow, so his solution to that was to connect the gradient all the way around and put white right in the middle. And that gave us the first color wheel. And from there were a number of other contributions from different people, like a poet named Goethe who wrote a book on color theory in 1810. He was a man of many talents. I mean, in a way, he was an early psychologist before psychology existed, and it was kind of one of the first contributions from that perspective. Years later, a guy named Albert Munsell came along, and he extended that even further. He brought the color wheel down into 3 dimensions, incorporating the property of saturation. Now we have colors mixing into white as they go towards the center, but then up and down you've got different levels of saturation. I mean, we all know that something like a neon green isn't the same green as the grass in your front yard. And they really wanted to consider that perceptual element. And that's where the psychology comes into play. Now, before I address perception, I do want to talk about sensation. They are different things. Sensation is the purely mechanical process of light entering the eye, interacting with rods and cones, and sending an action potential or electric signal down the optic nerve and into the brain. That signal goes, of course, to the visual cortex where imagery is processed, but it's not the only place it goes. It also goes to parts of the brain responsible for encoding memories and for our mood and behaviors and things like that. Now, with this newfound knowledge of how we interact with colors, we can develop a better understanding of our perception of them, which is really all of those things combined. How does it affect your mood? How does it affect your memory? And how does it affect your behavior? And that's where we get into the modern day and why it matters to us. Because now, today, I'm sure all you know, we're all bombarded with advertising and influencers and everything of that nature all the time. Well, how do they do what they do? A big part of it is color. There's a woman named Karen Haller who's a behavioral psychologist, but she's a consultant for major brands all around the world on just color. She helps them design and decide on how to position their brand. And one of her favorite quotes is that 80% of our purchasing decisions are driven by color alone. Now, this may seem a bit shocking. You may imagine all the times you went down to the store to buy something and think, surely 80% of that wasn't just because I saw a warm color like red that made me feel energetic, or because I saw a cool color like blue that made me feel calm and trusting. Well, that may or may not be true. Obviously, she has a lot of incentive to encourage that as it's her profession. But if it is true, it doesn't have to be all bad. There's ways we can use it too. Just like she knows how to pick a color because for example, a warm color that is energetic and gets you moving, like you see on Target or McDonald's. They use it because it stimulates hunger. Well, maybe we can do something like that too. In our own homes, we can paint rooms based on how we want them to make us feel, not just because it's a color we like. If you want a room where everyone's going to be hanging out, maybe choose a brighter, warmer color that's going to get the energy up and get people talking. Or maybe you could use it when picking out your outfits. What kind of a statement do you want to make? You could pick a bright red shirt that's bold and assertive and gets people energetic and excited about what you have to say. There are a variety of ways we can make use of this knowledge of color in our own lives, and I encourage you guys to explore that. Well, we've gone through and we've taken a look at how all this evolved over time, from the Greeks through the psychology and into the modern age with a whole bunch of advertising. And I really hope you guys have enjoyed that and learned something interesting. And I appreciate your time. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.